Breaking the Code, Time and Seasons, Part 4. Why do we still use a Roman calendar today? Introduction to Part 4. Question. Who declared in history that calendar changes do not affect the day? Answer. Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 is one of them. This study on the Roman calendar is taken from online Wikipedia unless otherwise shown. The Roman calendar changed its form several times between the founding of Rome and the fall of the Roman Empire. Although called the Roman calendar in 753 BC, the calendar used after 46 BC was named the Julian Calendar. The common calendar widely used today and known as the Gregorian calendar, ordered by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, is a refinement of the Julian calendar, where the length of the year has been adjusted from 365.25 days to 365.2425 days, a 0.002% change. The Romans did not have weekdays in the same sense as Monday, Tuesday, etc. However, they did have a defined marker within each month. Originally, the month and the markers were based on the moon. At the time of their early kings, Roman months were of a length identical to the lunar cycle. Each month was divided into sections that ended on the day of one of the first three phases of the moon: new, first quarter, or full. All days were referred to in terms of one of the three moon phase names: calends, nones, or ides. At a time, a pontifex or a priest was assigned to observe the sky. When he first sighted a thin lunar crescent, he called out that there was a new moon and declared the next month had started. For centuries afterward, Romans referred to the first day of each month as calendae or calends, from the Latin word calere, to announce solemnly, to call out. The word calendar was derived from this custom. The first Roman calendar was called Romulus calendar from 753 to 713 BC. Roman writers attributed the original Roman calendar to Romulus, the mythical founder of Rome, around 753 BC. The Romulus calendar had 10 months, with the spring equinox in the first month. The regular calendar year consisted of 304 days, with the winter days after the end of December and before the beginning of the following March not being assigned to any month. The names of the first 4 months were named in honor of Roman gods: Martius in honor of Mars, Aprilis in honor of Virilis or Avril, as we see in French. Only much later, in the mid-4th century AD, did it change to honor Venus. Maius in honor of Maia, Ennius in honor of Juno. The names of the month from the 5th month on were based on their position in the calendar. Quintilis come from Latin quinque, meaning 5, Sextilis from sex, meaning 6, September from septum, meaning 7, October from octo, meaning 8, November from novum, meaning 9, and December from decem, meaning 10. The second Roman calendar was attributed to Numa Pompilius' calendar, 713 to 46 BC. Numa Pompilius, the second of the 7 traditional kings of Rome, reformed the calendar of Romulus around 713 BC. The Romans considered odd numbers to be lucky, so Numa took 1 day from each of the 6 months with 30 days, reducing the number of days in the 10th previously defined month by a total of 6 days. There were 51 previously unallocated winter days, to which were added the 6 days from the reductions in the days in the months, making a total of 57 days. These he made into 2 months, January and February, which he prefixed to the previous 10 months. January was given 29 days, while February had the unlucky number of 28 days, suitable for the month of purification. This made a regular year of 12 lunar months, 355 days long, in place of the previous 304 days of the Romulus calendar. Of the 11th months, with an odd number of days, 4 had 31 days each, and 7 had 29 days each. The third Roman calendar was the Julian calendar from 46 BC to 1582 AD. By the 1st century BC, the Roman calendar had become hopelessly confused. The year, based on cycles and phases of the moon, totaled 355 days, about 10¼ days shorter than the solar year. The occasional intercalation of an extra month of 27 or 28 days, called Mercedonius, kept the calendar in step with the seasons. The confusion was compounded by political maneuvers. The Pontifex Maximus and the College of Pontiffs had the authority to alter the calendar, and they sometimes did so to reduce or extend the term of a particular magistrate or other public official. Finally, in 46 BC, Julius Caesar initiated a thorough reform that resulted in the establishment of a new dating system, the Julian calendar. He wanted the year to begin in January, since it contained the festival of the god of gates, later the god of all beginnings. But expulsion of the Etruscan dynasty in 510 BC led to this particular reform being dropped. The Roman Republican calendar still contained only 355 days, with February having 28 days, March, May, July, and October 31 days each, January, April, June, August, September, November, and December, 29 days. It was basically a lunar calendar and short by 10¼ days of a 365¼ day tropical year. Julius Caesar's calendar reform of 46 BC instituted January 1st as the first of the year. During the Middle Ages, however, European countries replaced it with days that carry greater religious significance, such as December 25th, the anniversary of Jesus' birth, and March 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation. The latter, known as Lady Day because it celebrates the Virgin Mary, marked the beginning of the year in Britain until January 1st, 1752. The new calendar became known as the Julian calendar. Quintilis was renamed as Julius, or July, in honor of Julius Caesar in 44 BC by Mark Antony. The calendar reforms were completed during the reign of his successor Augustus, when the Senate renamed Sextilis as Augustus in honor of calling it August. Taken from Encyclopedia Britannica online, we read, "The Julian calendar of Christ's day did not look like the Julian calendar when Pope Gregory XIII modified it, and thus did not look like the Gregorian calendar of today. There was no Saturday or seventh day at the end of the week on the original Julian calendar. The Julian calendar, like the calendar of the Republic before it, originally had an 8-day cycle. Every 8th day was a non-dine or market day." From the online Wikipedia, the Julian calendar differs from the Gregorian in the determination of leap years, lacking the correction for years divisible by 100 and 400 in the Gregorian calendar. In the Julian calendar, any positive year is a leap year if divisible by 4. Negative years are leap years if the absolute value divided by 4 yields a remainder of 1. Days are considered to begin at midnight. In the Julian calendar, the average year has a length of 365.25 days compared to the actual solar tropical year of 365.24, 21, 98, 78 days. The calendar thus accumulates 1 day of error with respect to the solar year every 128 years. Being a purely solar calendar, no attempt is made to synchronize the start of months to the phases of the moon. In order to prevent it from becoming too far out of step with the seasons, an intercalary month or intercalens or mercedonius for mercies, meaning wages, since workers were paid at this time of year, was inserted between February 23rd and 24th. It consisted of 27 or 28 days added once every 2 years, and in historical times at least, the remaining 5 days of February were omitted. The intercalation was therefore equivalent to an additional 22 or 23 days, so that in a 4-year period, the total days in the calendar amounted to 4 multiplied by 355 plus 22 plus 23, or 1,465. This gave an average of 366.25 days per year. The fourth Roman calendar is the Gregorian calendar from 1582 to today. The Gregorian calendar, also called the Western calendar and the Christian calendar, is internationally the most widely used civil calendar. It is named after Pope Gregory XIII, who introduced it in 1582. The original goal of the Gregorian calendar was to change the date of Easter. In 1582, when Pope Gregory XIII introduced his Gregorian calendar, Europe adhered to the Julian calendar, first implemented by Julius Caesar in 46 BC. Since the Roman emperor system miscalculated the length of the solar year by 11 minutes, the calendar had since fallen out of sync with the seasons. This concerned Gregory because it meant that Easter, traditionally observed on March 21st, fell further away from the spring equinox with each passing year. Leap years don't really occur every 4 years in the Gregorian calendar. The Julian calendar included an extra day in February every 4 years, but Aloysius Lilius, the Italian scientist who developed the system Pope Gregory would unveil in 1582, realized that the addition of so many days made the calendar slightly too long. He devised a variation that adds leap days in years divisible by 4 unless the year is also divisible by 100. If the year is also divisible by 400, a leap day is added regardless. While this formula may sound confusing, it did resolve the lack created by Caesar's early scheme, almost. The calendar was a refinement in 1582 to the Julian calendar amounting to a 0.002% correction in the length of the year. The motivation for the reform was to bring the date for the celebration of Easter to the time of the year in which the First Council of Nicaea had agreed upon in 325 AD. Because the celebration of Easter was tied to the spring equinox, the Roman Catholic Church considered this steady drift in the date of Easter undesirable. The reform was adopted initially by Catholic countries of Europe. Protestants and Eastern Orthodox countries continued to use the traditional Julian calendar and adopted the Gregorian reform after a time for the sake of convenience in international trade. The last European country to adopt the reform was Greece in 1923. The Gregorian reform modified our Julian's calendar schemes of leap years as follows. Every year that is exactly divisible by 4 is a leap year, except for years that are exactly divisible by 100, but these centurial years are leap years if they are exactly divisible by 400. For example, the years 1700, 1800, and 1900 are not leap years, but the year 2000 is. In addition to the change in the mean length of the calendar year from 365.25 days, or 365 days 6 hours, to 365.2425 days, or 365 days 5 hours 49 minutes and 12 seconds, a reduction of 10 minutes 48 seconds per year, the Gregorian calendar reform also dealt with the accumulated difference between these lengths. Between AD 325, when the First Council of Nicaea was held, and the vernal equinox occurred approximately on the 21st of March, and the time of Pope Gregory's bull in 1582, the vernal equinox had moved backward in the calendar so that in 1582 it occurred about the 11th of March, 10 days earlier than the 21st of March. The Gregorian calendar, therefore, began by skipping 10 calendar days to restore the 21st of March as the date of the vernal equinox. To unambiguously specify the date, dual datings or old style and new styles are sometimes used with dates. Dual datings used 2 consecutive years because of differences in the starting date of the year, or includes both the Julian and Gregorian dates. Old style and new style indicate whether the start of the Julian year has been adjusted to start on the 1st of January. The new style, even though documents written at the time use a different start of year, the old style, or whether a date conforms to the Julian calendar, old style, rather than the Gregorian, new style. The Gregorian calendar continued to use the previous calendar era of year numbering system, which counts years from the traditional date of the Nativity, Anno Domini, originally calculated in the 6th century by Dionysius Exiguus. This year numbering system, also known as Dionysian era or Common Era, is the predominant international standard today. Conclusion to Part 4. Modern Sabbatarians insist that Saturday is the Sabbath of the Bible because they believe that the 7-day week had cycled without interruption ever since creation. One reason for this belief is the fact that when the Julian calendar changed to the Gregorian calendar in 1582, no days of the week were lost. Thursday, October 4th, 1582 on the Julian calendar was followed by Friday, October 15 on the new Gregorian calendar. Therefore, it is assumed, because no days were lost when the calendars transitioned from Julian to Gregorian, the modern week is identical to the biblical week. This assumption is proven false in the historical facts of the Julian calendar itself. The calendar of the Roman Republic, like all ancient calendars, was originally based on lunar cycles. Pagan Roman priests, called pontiff, controlled the calendar by announcing the beginning of months. These pontiffs, who could also hold political office, shamelessly manipulated the calendar for political reasons, intercalating extra months to keep favorite politicians in office longer, or, conversely, leaving needed intercalations out in order to shorten the terms of political opponents. It is important to remember that the biblical week, as an individual unit of time defined in Genesis 1, consisted of only 7 days, 6 working days followed by a Sabbath rest on the last day of the week. The 8-day cycle of the Julian calendar was in use at the time of Christ. However, the Jews would not have kept the 7-day Sabbath on the 8-day weekly cycle of the Julian calendar. This would have been idolatry to them. Although the 7-day planetary week became popularized in Rome with the rise of the cult of Mithras, It did not become official until Constantine standardized the week at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. In light of these facts, it is illogical to assume that the Gregorian Saturday is the biblical Sabbath of creation. It is true that the Julian calendar transitioned to the Gregorian calendar without any loss of days. However, it is also true that the Gregorian calendar, like the Julian calendar before it, is founded entirely upon a pagan system of calendation. Jesuit astronomer Christopher Clavius confirmed that the Julian calendar is rooted in pure paganism and has no ties whatsoever to biblical calendation. Clavius is world-renowned as the architect of the modern Gregorian calendar. Because the Julian calendar was just a little too long by the 16th century, the vernal equinox was no longer falling on the date arbitrarily assigned to it in the 3rd century, March 21st. Pope Gregory XIII assigned Clavius the task of calendar reform to bring the spring equinox back to March 21st. In his book Romani Calendari Gregorio XIII Restituti Explicato, Clavius reveals that when the Julian calendar was made the ecclesiastical calendar of the Church at the Council of Nicaea, the Church deliberately rejected biblical calendation and instead adopted pagan calendation. Referring to the differing systems of calendation used for determining the biblical Passover versus the pagan substitute of Easter, Clavius states, "The Catholic Church has never used that Jewish rite of celebrating the Passover, but always in its celebration has observed the motion of the moon and the sun, and it was thus sanctified by the most ancient and most holy pontiffs of Rome, but also confirmed by the First Council of Nicaea." The pontiffs he is referring to are the ancient priests of Roman paganism. Modern Christians have assumed that the Gregorian Saturday is the Bible Sabbath. However, Christians who lived at the time the Julian calendar was enforced by civil legislation had no doubts or confusion over the matter. The Sabbath was calculated by the biblical lunisolar calendar. The Lord's Day, Sunday, by the pagan solar calendar. As David Sidorski noted, it was no more possible under Constance to apply the old calendar. Apostolic Christians, however, did not obey the new edict. Canon 29 of the Council of Laodicea demanded, "Christian shall not Judaize and be idle on Saturday, but shall work on that day. But the Lord's Day they shall especially honor, and as being Christians shall, if possible, do no work on that day. If, however, they are found Judaizing, they shall be shut out from Christ." It is important to know that the word Saturday has been supplied in the English translation. According to Catholic Bishop Karl von Effeli's History of the Councils of the Church from the original documents, the word used was actually Sabbath in both the Greek and the Latin, and the word anathema or accursed in place of shut out. The Latin version clearly does not contain any reference to dies Saturni or Saturday, but instead uses Sabbato or Sabbath. Only in recent years, as the facts of history have been forgotten, has Saturday been assumed to be the Bible Sabbath. When the Julian calendar was being enforced upon Christians for ecclesiastical use, no one at the time confused dies Saturni with Sabbato. Everyone knew that they were two different days by two distinct calendar systems. This is from the excerpt from Continuous Week Cycle, Theory Proven False by Julian Calendar, from the website 4angelspublication.com. Therefore, whosoever thought that the calendar has never changed may agree now that the Roman calendar from 753 BC to 1582 AD has undergone many changes and is requiring changes again as the Gregorian calendar of 1582 has fallen behind in time with the cycle of the moon. Additional synchronisms and chronological facts will be presented in Part 5 to 8.